Welcome to the Overdrive show. This is Ginger.
Hey Ginger, this is Perry here from Bible VR.
Hi, how are you today?
I'm doing good. Am I calling in time?
You are perfectly on time. I mean, literally,
Great.
literally, my clock had just turned right at 3 o'clock. That doesn't always happen, so I'm always ready for anything.
That's great.
You've been a director. You know how being on time, how that like throws everything into chaos, right?
Or otherwise, my assistant director yells at me.
Oh, well, that can be worse sometimes. So, well, welcome. I am so excited for so many reasons to talk to you. Um, this is quite a story. I mean, it's not my average interview where, it's more about just a film coming out or new music and everything. This
Right.
is a true journey that you've been on. First of all, looking at the movies that you've directed and the people you worked with, I'm so like excited because some of my favorite actors like John Voight and Faye Dunaway and even Ed Speleers because he's on Downton Abbey and I'm a big fan of that movie.
Wow,
Like,
that's a name I haven't heard in a while. Ed Speleers.
yeah, well, and he was in the movie Aragon. My son was
Mm-hmm.
just flipped out with that movie. He's always been into like dragons and just all that kind
Right.
of stuff. Dinosaurs, whatever. And that movie when it came out, he was just like he loved him. And then when I showed him. I said, well, that guy is on Aragon, isn't he? We're watching Downton Abbey, and he's like, I hate that show. He's a college kid. But he's a really talented guy. And then you look at, people like Faye Dunaway, it's like legend. But that's not even the legendary part. You're the first Hollywood feature film director from your home country of Singapore. Like, what is that
That's
like?
right.
What was your did you have a lot of support? Were people excited about your coming out as a director here?
Well, especially back home, there was definitely a level of excitement, and um, everybody had something to talk about and things like that. But really, I was actually more, overwhelmed by what came after that because I guess, after my first movie and people watch a few of my shorts, they definitely saw me being very successful, and since then, my agents and managers have been me up towards that whole dark aesthetic of filmmaking.
Yeah,
And
it's a
being
big market.
and being a Christian and all that, it just got really, really more and more tough as more and more of my films became horror films, horror movies. Some of the things I don't agree of, but you got to pay the bills at that point. So I was always looking for a way out.
Yeah.
And I was always looking for like, hey, give me something to do. And obviously that ain't gonna happen. Not in Hollywood. They say you're great at horror films. That's what you're gonna do.
And then don't you
um,
kind of get cast into that mold like a horror film script
Forever.
yeah, like
Mhm.
you're just known as he does horror movies. It's not somebody for a drama or comedy. You don't go there. Like that's his field. You kind of get cast into that and then so they don't want you to stop because you're doing well at it. It's
Right,
making
and my
money.
agents and managers are making money off of me.
Exactly,
And
right.
so when I said, hey, you know what? Why don't I do a change? I want to make a faith-based film. And they all just laughed at me. And
Kind of it's so music has come so far in Christian music. It's so well accepted, for everybody. A lot of people like Christian
amazing.
music.
Yeah.
Like they don't have the stereotype anymore. They broke that mold, but the feature films in Christian films are struggling so hard, and some incredibly done films that just can never get off the ground because Hollywood doesn't think people will go see it. And it's a very hard sector. That culture has got to shift. It's slowly changing, but it's going to take a while. And yeah, so I guess for me, that was the first thing I thought you would do is go from horror. Since you were a director, go stop the horror movie genre and go right into Christian films. But that's not as easy in segue as it sounds, right?
oh, it's practically impossible. Even Christian companies, they're also afraid, to say like, oh, what if he did well, what's it going to look like for us to be hiring a director who does all this, crazy horror films kind of thing? And so it kind of plays on both sides. And so I decided that I really needed to do something else. I really needed, like, if I wanted to, promote, the Gospels and all that, I'm going to have to make my own way. I can't afford to rely on somebody to give me a job as a director anymore.
Right.
And, and that's how my new venture, Bible VR, came about.
So why horror movies in the beginning? Like, why did you is that the first job that came in your vicinity? Yeah, I thought it might have. Halloween's coming up, and I live in Michigan, and I tell you, they go more all out for Halloween than they do Christmas. Like, when it comes to stuff on their lawn and decorating their house, I mean it. And people, I think there's something about being scared that makes people feel more alive. It's like. You know
actually,
what I mean?
I beg to differ on that, really.
Like people who are searching. I don't mean Christians, but I mean,
yeah,
by and large,
I
there's
think
some
it's
kind of
because,
excitement. Yeah.
Yeah, I really think it's because it's a safe way to confront, like a dark side. It's a safe and fun way to confront your dark side. And a lot of people who haven't been saved do have that problem. They haven't learned to, surrender themselves. And they haven't in actuality, that dark side is still inside of them,
right?
Because they haven't learned to accept their Lord Jesus Christ into their lives. And so when an opportunity comes up, like horror films, like Halloween and all that, to kind of safely play around with that dark side a little bit, it is a very, very what would the word be? Fun thing to do, if you can say it. So, most people would do that, but, it comes to a point in your life when you feel like, I don't need that anymore.
Your movie, it's The Curse of Sleeping Beauty is like #1 horror movie on Netflix right now. But you know what? When I go through Netflix or Hulu or Amazon or any of those, and I go through the movies, it's almost like every third movie is a scary movie. Like horror movies, that's like the biggest thing out there. Someone always wants to be scared, or I think there's even as a believer, you're constantly still fighting darkness. So my mom, when I was younger, she would not let me watch any films. She would let me watch some scary stuff, but it had to be something that could never happen, like an alien thing. But if it had to do with like The Exorcist or any kind of demonic spirit, she said, you're welcoming that demonic spirit into your realm. And she said, although they can't inhabit you, they can hurt you, and it can totally hurt your walk. Because that would be my problem. I can tell that there's probably only a certain time that you could spend in that horror film, a directing chair, and as being a Christian, without at some point you have to either just stay committed and pay the bills, like you said, or you have to find an out. Because I can just watching a horror film is hard for me, but when it comes to I've seen several films that I know the directors, and of faith films, and being behind the scenes, frame by frame, it's a different story. So you're whether you're doing 1 take or 3 takes or 5 takes, you are one by one frame constantly absorbing that every day. It's it's not a 2-hour thing for you. And like a regular movie. So it's kind of,
and you also have to understand the mentality. You have to understand how to pull people into that dark side. You have to get involved in it to see how it works. And if you want to be successful in anything you do, whether or not it's horror or faith-based, you gotta be in it. So like you said, what is it like day after day, take after take? You're doing it, it gets to you. Yeah.
I mean, you're still human, and that the darkness is always fighting, especially believers, because the darkness doesn't want us to shine a light on anything. So I'm sure the enemy wanted you to stay in horror films. The chance.
Well, and think about it. I think that a lot of people don't realize the extent that it could get to them. For example, you heard about the latest clown craze that's going on right now.
Oh, yeah.
And people are getting freaked out about it. Now, where do you think that came from? Where do you think that idea of clowns, it started from It. And there have been millions and millions of clown films out there.
That was horrifying.
It's all fun and games, right? It's all fun and games. You're watching a movie, not a problem. But then, somehow, it becomes embedded into our culture. Now it becomes something people actually physically manifest into reality. And now everybody's freaked out. Now they're realizing, no, this is not cool. It was cool when you were watching the movie, but it's not cool when it's happening in real life.
I got a clown doll from when I was 4 years old, and it was a vintage collector's item, and you pull its string and it talks, and at the time I thought it was cool, but you don't know how many. I have 3 kids in college, and every single time I bring that out, it scares any of their friends. Like, they're like, I hate clowns, put the clown away. I'm like, his name's Patootie. Like, he's, he like giggles, and like, I'm like, but they're like, no, don't make it giggle. That's worse, But you're right.
It's what energy you're putting into it.
Yeah.
And
oh
if
my
it's a fun thing, it's a fun thing. If it's a dark thing, then it's going to be scary,
It attaches to it. Really. Yeah. You could, sadly, I mean, dolls. I used to collect dolls. Now my, I didn't do that with my girls, because by then too many creepy doll, like Child's Play and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden dolls are creepy. And
yeah,
I can remember being scared of a commercial that had nothing to do with anything, but it was something under a bed, and it wasn't even something scary. It was a product of some kind, but I was looking under my bed every night for that, and I didn't even know what it was. Like, it was what, you know what I mean? It's like, it is. You attach yourself mentally to those things. I'm really curious. So, what was your? How did you become a Christian? Like, who was influential in your life that or how did you become a Christian? I should say.
I was born a Christian in a non-denominational church, and I was named after a pastor. My middle name, Reginald, is actually it came from the pastor who married my mom and dad. So I've always been brought up in the environment, but along the way, I guess it probably started as a teenager, where you're really trying to find your own identity. And, that identity has led me into various events in my life that eventually, gave me the term a horror film director.
Wow.
So that there is not, I wouldn't say there is one thing, but so I've always been a Christian, and, kind of like many stories of many Christians out there, we all had a sliding back point. That could be us finding our identity. It could be something as simple as being angry at a particular person and you're taking it out on the rest of Christians. It could be a lot of things.
Yeah.
But I personally feel that that there is always a way, that there is always a path that we can find to come back and to experience that, sense of joy and peace that I feel as a human being right now. But yet at the same time, it's like it's tough for everybody, and it's even tougher in today's media, where we are being painted, Christians are being painted as kooks.
Yeah.
If I say I'm a Christian, all of a sudden I'm like some kooky guy who believes in some white old male guy in white clouds and all that, and that's hardly the case of what being Christian is about. But yet, because that's the kind of media, that's the kind of things that the media portrays us to be, and now you have kids who have so much access to it from the internet and all that, it just keeps pounding into them and pounding it. And so I want to use a new technology like virtual reality to try to almost change that again, and try to remind people again what it's like, that joy that we feel being Christians.
Yeah.
Because I forgot about it. I know what it's like to forget about it, and I can tell you, I when in the beginning of my career as a horror film director, even though I was a Christian, I can tell you easily, I'm not going to deny this, it made me happy. It made me happy to be accepted. All of a sudden I'm in a group of people that don't seem to, judge. I felt that way. I felt accepted. And, and that's the beginning of the downward spiral, because, that's not real. People do judge, Christians, humans, we do judge, because we all live different lives, and that's what makes us all great. But yet we tend to take the actions of a few people and take it on a whole entire group.
Yeah.
Which I think is unfair.
They either think you're going to try to convert them right away, or that you're going to be watching everything they do and scrutinizing, your parts of your life.
Exactly.
Whether you take a drink of wine or if you happen to say a curse word or anything, they feel like every little thing they do, you've already judged them and painted them as that's a bad person,
And I think that really comes from the media injecting about, again, what a certain group of people are like, you know. The media does that for African Americans. The media does that for Asians. Between over-sexualizing females and under-sexualizing males, the media does that for Christians. The media loves to put people in boxes. But what they don't realize is that we are all human beings. No two human beings are alike, not even twins.
Yeah.
And, it is impossible to say, this is how we stereotype, because stereotyping is really the start of, the downward spiral for prejudice, for segregation, anything you want to talk about. And it happens not just in race or male and female sex. It happens also in religion as well.
I actually manage a band that we wrote our entire last album about that, like the title song is American Jesus, and it's about how people have Americanized who the Savior is, and the chorus says, people basically want to see a suit and a tie with a wink in his eye. He's just a really sweet or really swell guy or whatever. And it says, but the truth of the story is that he left all his glory to walk on roads made of sand, make wood with his, carve wood with his hands, and be a servant to man. It's like, it's all like the whole album is about that, and our whole reason.
Wonderful. That's beautiful.
And we wrote it because, and you know what, I would say to most people, you would not believe this, but you will. We got so much feedback, I'm going to say, when we released that to radio. If somebody loved it, they loved it. If they did not like it, they let us know. They told us we were being satirical and cynical, and we were saying no. Like, we say it about ourselves. Like, we all need to quit saying that, a Christian is some person, this swell guy with a suit and a tie and just, everything's peaches and cream, but the people that makes the Savior not accessible to people. And when Jesus, when the woman touched the hem of his garment and was healed, that's because he was walking among them. He wasn't on some big stage somewhere where no one could get to him. He immersed himself. Sinners, believers, didn't matter. Well, we're all sinners, but whether they were believers or non-believers, it didn't matter. He immersed himself in every area, and it didn't mean he hung out with them on a regular basis, but he didn't judge, and that whole.
I felt like he did.
Well, I mean, he judged a sin. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we have to remember the real story. I mean, when one of our guys was interviewed in the band, he said, think about it. I'm sorry, but, Jesus probably didn't smell too good at the time. He didn't have many clothes. He wore sandals. His feet were probably dirty. He got himself dirty, and you're going to have to get next to people that make you uncomfortable. And
we all do, yeah.
I will tell you, I can now say there's a tie for first place. One of my second favorite people now in Singapore, but is Joseph Prince. I really love him. I don't know if everyone loves him there, but
I don't know him personally, but I do know people who do know him, and everybody has been saying nothing but amazing things about that chap. You know, he is.
He's so direct.
He's he's a real standout guy. You know, with everybody that he's met, and you know, it'd be an honor one day possibly to meet him.
Oh, see, now there's your connection. Why don't you get with him and direct something? Yeah, that would be cool. No, now I do want to actually make sure we, you know, I ordered some virtual reality glasses. I'll be honest and say I'm a tech nerd, and so is my daughter. But she has some virtual reality glasses, but I have not. I ordered some, so I am so excited to try this out. So I mean,
what phone are you using?
A Samsung. It's the Samsung Gear. And
okay.
So
yeah, it's actually available right now for Android. For Apple, we are just you know, we have to wait for the review. Apple takes some time to review.
There's a lot of red tape.
App.
Yeah.
But it's live on Android already, and you know, again, there are three main categories. We only do live action. You know, my colleagues, I call them my colleagues because I talk to them. And I consider them a part of, you know, the bigger plan.
Right.
And they have made Bible VRX, Church VR, you know, animated stuff, you know, of Bible stories.
Mm-hmm.
I chose to focus on live action, partially because I know that in my training I've learned how to work with actors and extras and all that. So I wanted to start creating worlds. I divided my virtual reality experience into several different categories, one being, you know, movies and clips of different stories in the Bible. And then I also have what I was very excited by, what a lot of people really, really clinged on to was, you know, tours of the Holy Land.
Yeah.
And you know, everybody, you know, even people who went to the Holy Land, you know, they would come back to me when we were at the convention, and they were like, you know, this is a new experience for me because, you know, when I was over there, it was not only dangerous. I was always looking around, but yeah, at the same time, you know, I'm crowded by all these people, and all of a sudden you're putting me in that same room, but finally I get to look around. I get to see all the symbolisms.
You can take it in. You can take it in more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that was the toughest part of putting the Holy Land tour together. Was getting the permits from the government, from the priests, you know, from even the military and police, just to say we need this place cleared for 5 minutes, just so we can put our cameras in there and just capture this experience for them. That took a lot of paperwork and a lot of time. But once we got in there, we had our system, and we are able to, you know, really capture the place in all its beauty, and really see it. Because, you know, and I have a lot of secular friends, you know, friends from, you know, even the horror industry. Yeah. And they were like, hey, I heard you're doing this. Can I check it out? Can I try it? I was like, sure. So I put it on. They're like, this is a cool place. Like, this cool room. Like, what's this room again? And I'm like, this is where Jesus was born. And the first thing that they pull up their heads and look at me, what do you mean? I was like, I don't know what to tell you. That's where he was born. That's as simple as that. And they were like, I thought he was, didn't he come like from the clouds down or something like that?
Yeah, like Zeus with lightning bolts.
Yeah, but to them that's what they think, because the media's always, every time you see a picture of Jesus, whether it's a post on Facebook or something, he's always in the clouds, long hair with the beard and mustache, and all of a sudden you're showing them something that's real. Yeah. You're showing them something that happened, and the most common response I get from them is, huh.
It's bewilderment.
Yeah, that's not even, it's not even a word, but it's like, you know, and so I don't try to tell them about, you know, how to be a Christian or something. I just plant the seed, you know, just plant it in your head that, you know, and virtual reality is great because it's short form, and people with short attention spans, they're not going to watch a 90-minute long faith-based film, right? You know, because to them they're like, you know what? I'll rather watch the next episode of American Horror Story or
Yeah,
Empire
exactly.
or something.
Right.
And so all of a sudden they get something non-intrusive, not time. You're not investing so much time in it, and they're like, yeah, let's give it a shot. And then when it's something really cool and something that they actually enjoy, then you just planted a seed in them. Then what I did was I linked up fun, entertainment, educational, and my faith all at once,
Yeah.
And so then it becomes helpful for me because, again, when people think about another thing about people thinking about Christians is that they think of us as we're going to come knocking at your doors. I know that's the Mormons, but they think that we're going to come into your house with our Bible, open it, and start reading off the Bible, and that's not true.
They expect a lecture. They get to be preached at.
There are people that do that, and that's great. God bless them for what they're doing. That's amazing. But there are also many other Christians who just want to share their joy, want to share the cool things about what we believe in. And we're not asking you to believe in it. We just think, why can't we just share you our smiles? And so virtual reality Bible VR was created for that reason, was that when people saw where he was born, when people see where he was baptized, when they see the watch the movies or visit our prayer rooms, which is all the the oldest churches in the world where they can actually be in a meditative state or pray or whatever they want to do with it, it creates something that to me is taking a step away from what the media has been portraying us. And we're saying, well, and we're doing it in virtual reality. We're doing it something so new and so cool, in my opinion, that really you are forced to look at us a little bit differently now.
Yeah. What are some of the other places that you visited, like different countries or different locations for this?
We are going to actually be filming some stuff in the Vatican City in the coming months. We shot in Amsterdam in the world's only floating ark. It's a life-size
I've seen that. I've seen it on
8 people.
I've never been there, but I've seen the images of what it is. So that it's got to be amazing. Yeah.
And so we are actually that's the next 8 sections that we're going to release in the next month.
So it's a continual process. So it's not like you just upload the program or start watching the program and then like when you get to the end of it you're done kind of thing. Like you're continually exploring it.
Correct. And
wow.
So we're always growing, and then we're going to add new movies and all that. But like for movies, we have Zechariah's prophecy, meeting Mary for the first time, watching the birth of John the Baptist.
Wow.
Watching the birth of Jesus, and we wanted to make it fun and colorful and all that as well. And then for the Holy Land tours, we are taking people to the Church of All Nations, which is where Jesus prayed his last prayer before getting taken away.
Right.
We have the Last Supper room, birthplace of John the Baptist, Golgotha, where he was crucified, his tomb, where they laid him down, the classic Mount Olive, Stone of Unction, where he was laid down to be prepared for burial, Church of Annunciation, where Mary met the angel Gabriel, Sanctuary of Nazareth, Church of Joseph, where a church was built over the actual house of Joseph, and nearby is the Church of St. Mary, birthplace of Jesus, the Milk Grotto, St. Gabriel's Church, John the Baptist's birthplace. I mean, we have a lot.
Well, the great thing is it's kind of like if you don't know many people about your family, maybe your legacy of where your family was from, to trace back and see, for me, just seeing my own family, like where my mom was born, like my grandmother was birthed in their house, and I saw the house where my grandmother was birthed in. I mean, it's like it's like that real connection from the unseen.
It happened.
Yeah, I mean, it's that connection from the things that we have our faith in. It's a connection to that's
And how
here.
does it feel, like, no, stepping into your grandma's house for the first time? How did that feel to you? Like, were you in a
Overwhelming. I
sense
mean, immediate
wonder?
tears because I'm a big baby, but like, immediately. I mean, because my grandmother was that matriarch that she practiced Christ's life. Like, she was not preachy. She was just she was just somebody
She
who
led by
opened her home
example.
to everyone. She loved everyone. It all stems back to my grandmother. So it's almost like that was the birthplace of our, coming to Christ as a family was my grandmother.
What a fantastic story your grandma is.
So, and she literally died on Christmas Day. She
Oh,
she
sorry
was
to hear
just shy of 90, but she was happy. I mean, never hardly sick. I mean, she had high blood pressure
that.
and
She
things
was
later,
a beacon
but
of light.
oh my goodness! And then to be, I felt like I was probably unworthy to be like at places like that where I had some relatives after she passed away that told me stories of her when she was a young child and how my great grandmother was, and as I learned the more I learned about her, the more I became in awe, and just it connected me more and more to my family. And when you talk about faith, do you know who Darren Wilson is? Okay, his film Father of Lights was one of the first documentary type films I saw in Christianity that just blew my mind. And I was interviewing him, so they sent me the movie, and that he literally uses the Holy Spirit as a GPS.
Absolutely.
He walked into the Holy of Holies. Who does that? There no one, even like people of the Muslim religion, can't get in there. And he somehow met a guy that would take him in there and took his camera crew, and they prayed in the Holy of Holies. I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, so that's why, and I love his movies because I feel like I can do what this virtual reality program is doing. I feel like I can connect it. It just feels more real. So much of our faith is not seen.
It's kind of like your grandmother's house. I'm sure when you stepped in there, not only were you overwhelmed, but you felt like everybody who knew her had to go there, had to visit there one time. And it was the same feeling I got when, the first time I went to the Holy Land and I visited all those sites. I was like, every Christian needs to be there. Yeah. Sure, if you have $5,000,
So many people can't.
And, and many people cannot. So when this technology, virtual reality came, I was like, this is it. I can bring it to them. I can show them those places. And it's not like a camera saying, look here and look here. It's like, it's 360 degrees where you're looking around. You can decide how you want to look around, up, down, left, right, explore the place, be in it as long as you want. And if I can't take Christians there, I can bring it to them.
Am I correct
right now,
that you have music? Do you have music in the background while it's going on, or?
Absolutely, we chose the most calming music that we could do. Composed music as well, and something that's, to me, it's calming. That there's certain music that inspires certain things for me, like you could have rock music to go but the kind of music I chose for the churches is one that commands two things. One is serenity and one is respect. And those are the two things that me and the composers have talked about when we are trying to come up with the right kind of music, because you should feel at peace at those places, and you should also feel in awe of these places as well.
And you don't want the music to just totally distract what they're seeing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we try to keep it really simple. And we have two versions. You can choose one version where you're just there by yourself. So you can choose to look around. You can choose to focus on something. You can choose to pray in there, meditate in there. Or you can choose, we actually hired an award-winning,
narrator.
Tour guide. To take you around. So in case you want to see what his, where Jesus was born, for example, he not only takes you to that room, but he explains to you all the symbolisms, where it came from, what this represented, what this architecture, where, why are you looking at an architecture from the 15th century? Because, he explained that the previous church, during the war, this place came down, so it was rebuilt to look like this. But he'll tell you where in the mosaics were the original mosaics from like the 5th century and things like that.
I would think it would be amazing to experience it through the narrator or the tour guide and get all of the history behind it and then go back through it with the music. So
and then just go through it by yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can choose whatever experience you want. And that's just, our section just on the Holy Land tour. And, our main goal is every month is to just keep adding more stuff, to visit more holy places and bring it to, Christian people to just really see that, your faith and all that is not limited to you and your church. It's celebrated worldwide. This is where it all happened. And to really feel like we are all one together as a human race. Christianity is not limited to America. It's worldwide. And it is such an exciting and important thing to share, without it being intrusive. We don't say that Christians believe this, Christians believe that, you have to believe this or you have to believe that. We took all of that kind of talk out. To us, we also want it to be something that, secular people can go to and feel like this is such an awesome lesson on history as well.
Yes.
And things like that. And again, it's how we present ourselves. And Bible VR has been designed to present what I believe how Christians should be represented, not by people whom the media thinks as kooky people, but people of history, people of faith, people of belief, people of surrender, and people of obedience. And we are just a small part in all this plan. And I would be very honored if, there are people out there who are going to share this journey with me. Because to me, this is an ongoing project. It's not just like a film. You make it and, okay, what's the next project? This is something that I intend to do over month after month after month and just keep bringing new experiences to people, all the time.
I think the great thing about it, too, is, you have kind of gotten ahead of the game because virtual reality is just barely tapped as a market. Mm-hmm. And so, you know
what's funny?
That's like being MySpace now and Facebook's coming out, right. It's not outdated. The first time I was
introduced to virtual reality was a colleague of mine called me and said, Pearry, you have to come over to the studio right now. These guys want to talk to you. So I was like, all right. I ran down there, put on the glasses, and it was, it was awesome. It was fun.
Yeah.
And so he turned to me and I was like, okay. And he's like, okay, so what do you think? We got to start doing like the ultimate horror virtual reality project. And I'm like, okay.
I would be running into walls if you put me in like a horror situation with virtual reality. Yeah, I would destroy my house.
I'm thinking. And then somewhere in there, my mind just clicked. And a little voice in my head said, you know what, Pearry? You keep talking about wanting an out. You keep talking about wanting to do, to spread the message, the gospels. Now's your chance. Why are you thinking about it in horror? And that was when I go, whoa.
Wow.
I know what I'm doing with this. So I called my friend, and I said, here's my idea on horror. And he's like, great, do you want to shoot it? I was like, nope, it's yours now. Take it.
Wow.
May you be blessed with it. It's yours. So I gave it to him, and I stepped out, and I said, well, how am I going to do this? I know what I'm going to do. I just don't know how to do it. And so one call led to another. Started talking to my dad, and he thinks it's a great idea. He's like, well, let's put our heads together, and let's see if we can figure a way to make this work. So, the first and most important thing is, well, what do we want to give people? How can we serve? And so we made out this whole plan just on that alone.
Wow.
And came gospel movies, then came prayer rooms, then came the Holy Land tours, and 1 year later, here we are.
And the great thing about media is, so many times it's used for bad reasons or to promote bad things, and And so people just say, a lot of like even parents I've heard say, well, I just don't let my kid on Facebook. That doesn't mean you're taking away those influences that are out of their life. And not to mention, why not let them use Facebook to influence their generation? They can use media for that reason, like you're doing. I mean, you can take what probably the devil meant for evil and use it for his good. And the
media can be used for good or bad. You're right. You're absolutely right.
And technology it's so relevant, and especially we need to reach the young generations, because we really need that. We need to tap into what they're interested in. And virtual reality, I 2 out of my 3 kids are severe gamers, and they've made a little bit of a gamer out of me. But I do silly things like play Batman, and my son gets mad because all I do is fly around and grapple, and he's like, you're supposed to be completing these missions, He's like, you're supposed to get that trophy, and I'm like, yeah, but this is fun, and he just walks away. It just drives him crazy.
I do collect trophies on PlayStation, I admit that. Yes.
Yeah, like he loves PlayStation and Xbox, and my daughter has she has the new PlayStation, but she, like the virtual reality came out, and on the Galaxies, they're very incredible. The visuals, and my daughter was gaming on hers, and I was like, see, now I'd have to have somebody like strap me to a chair, because I would want to just completely go all the way through there. I would be...
Just start running.
Yeah, just start, running for wherever and, collecting trophies or whatever.
It really is awesome. It is really, it's really cool. You really feel like you're there, and you're not constricted by anything. You can move your head, and you can look at the world around you in 360 degrees. It's fantastic. And, again, like you said, media can be used for good or can be used for bad. And, I think right now, I call this year virtual reality year 0, because everybody's just starting out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And while I admit I still have a lot to learn, but yet I think that we are ready right now. I am ready. The technology is ready to at least bring some of it to you. And we're going to grow every month. We're going to find new ways to do new things. And I want to interact with my audiences. I want them to say, I would love this, I would love that. I want to go out and I want to give it to them. I want to be able to give them the tools to share, explore, learn. And virtual reality can be used great for that. It can be used to scare the crap out of you too.
Oh yeah.
And yeah. I tried this experience that my friend did, and all the back of my hair just stood up of how
is this the horror one?
Scary it is. Yeah. And it just stood up. And so, and likewise, I have, on my website, I've shot videos of people who
were experiencing it.
Yeah. And it's crazy that, there are people who they pull it out and they're red-eyed because, finally they get to see it.
Yeah.
And the person that was left speechless and just stood there like a total statue, so long that I couldn't even have the whole clip up there, was a guy in a handicapped chair. He's immobile. He cannot move.
He can't go there.
And and because you have to understand that these churches in the Holy Land, they were built centuries ago, before people had wheelchairs and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So some of the stairs, you couldn't even fit a wheelchair up there. It is not handicap friendly at all.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So this is the closest way he can get to being there. And it was the most amazing thing to see him just stay there and just be a rock and just like, I'm speechless.
He was immersed.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, that was when I said, this is my calling. This is what I want to give to people. Scaring them is fun. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like a drug. You're just chasing after the next thing over and over again. This to me is like, it's everlasting. People remember it. And that's what made me feel like this is so special, And so now I'm integrating church programs and all that in there. Like I'm turning around to churches and say, hey, I'll get it for you for free. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of you guys. This is worth spreading.
You know what you need to do is you need to have youth groups, have them do that within their youth group, and have someone tape all of these kids experiencing it and make it relevant, to those young kids, and watch teenagers and college kids, because they're gonna have the funniest reactions probably, because it's gonna be.
What we're gonna do?
That's so cool.
What we're actually doing is we implemented a program, and it's on our website. Youth pastors and all that are able to get our app, a unlocked lifetime subscription for free.
And that is at bible-vr.com, right?
That's right, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes. And so you can go there and register. And if you belong to a church, if your mission is whether you're a ministry, a church, a parachurch, or organization, if your mission is to spread the word, we're there for you.
That's
we
so
want to help
incredible.
you spread it too. Yeah, we don't limit. Sure, we are a business. Sure, there's subscription costs and things like that. For the individual, it's fine. But when it comes to churches and when it comes to people with the right heart to spread the message, we want to be there for them too.
Well, you know what? Now you've given me, because you said you played PlayStation. You know how you start playing and then you look up and you look at the time and it's like 4 hours later. Like now you have made it okay for me to look at my clock and it be 4 hours later, because the thing is for me, I'll tell you this may not be like one of the immediate thoughts you had when you were doing it, but my immediate thought about this program was, this will be a way for me to force myself to get that quiet time in a world where we are bombarded, stimulated, constantly visually and audibly, like everything is, and everybody wants their information in a nanosecond, and everything is so overwhelming with the stimulation around us. And I find it hard. I find like I literally, when people talk about their prayer closet, I literally feel like I need to get in my closet. I got to turn off my phone. I got to unplug the Wi-Fi. I mean, I can't, You know what I mean? Like, this is a way for people to spend quiet time that they need, because God said, that how he speaks, is a still small voice. And it's kind of like driving
a whisper.
Yeah, and it's like driving your car as a mother. Like when you're driving and trying to find the location, and your kids are fighting in the back seat, you can't concentrate. You know what I mean? It's like you can't concentrate. You don't know. You can't even begin to know where you're going. Because,
like you, there's a certain sense of relief. My kids are all grown up.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they still might fight in the back seat, but I can just turn off their phone service and they make up. So that was my punishment. I was taking away technology, whether it be cell phones or, being on Wi-Fi or watching cable. Like, that's their punishment, because they're so connected.
I think one thing we also have to consider that's, really great is also the fact that, a lot of people focus on the idea of prayer. A lot of people focus on the idea of praying and all that. And praying is really talking to God, right?
Which the Bible says we should never cease doing. It should be a conversation that goes on all day.
I think there should also be an equal part to listening to God as well. You pray to Him all the time, but what if He has an answer for you? You have to listen, right? And like you said, it's a whisper. It's that moment of silence. Yeah, what He has to say. You pray. He's gonna respond to you. Absolutely, we know that.
Yeah.
But what if He did? But because of all the noise in the world, you couldn't hear it.
And there's no other gods before Him, and technology can be such a god before Him.
So I'm not saying my technology will give you the answers, but my technology can help you to be in a state where you could be listening. Don't stop praying, because kind of like conversations we're having right now. I talk, you listen, you talk, I listen, and it goes back and forth. So prayer is always necessary. But I think listening is equally important too. And I think that's the beauty of it, is it's sometimes when you stop and you listen, and then you realize, you know what? God does answer all my prayers. Clutter, all this media, all this noise and blah, people are talking to you, people are influencing you, that you don't spend that one-on-one time with God just to listen to Him, just to be quiet and just feel in your heart, and then that whisper how He talks to you, because He will talk to you. That's a guarantee.
The creator of this world wants to be an audience from us, and so we should want to be an audience of Him, and it's really hard. I mean, like I said, I'm a tech geek, so this this is definitely a great outlet for me. I probably have to turn off all my other apps, but like I can't wait to try it, because that is so me, like for me to just it's kind of like when people marvel at a painting or like that. I mean, to just marvel at different places where our Christian history connects us and where it actually took place.
Sometimes I still don't know how they did it. Yeah, sometimes I look at a church at how big and how immense it is, and I've been to mega churches and all that
with the tools that they had available at the time. I mean, with the materials. I
honestly don't know how they did it. But like here, like if I go to a very modern mega church, I can see structure, I can see metal, I can see how architecture has created this place, and I can visualize in my mind how the machines, the cranes, and everything helped make that happen. I can see that. But back in those days, I look around, even in my VR headset, I still look at it right now and go, I don't know how they did it.
And they're so majestic. Some of them
paintings,
are.
Mosaics,
oh my goodness! Yes.
All these things, like amazing, like it's awe-inspiring, and I think sometimes we just forget to appreciate what men inspired by God can do. It's astounding. It's astounding. I mean, even when I went to the Noah's Ark and looked at it, there is one in Kentucky.
That's a real size, like
it's a real size, but it's not a floating ark.
Right.
The one that I went to was just not a floating ark, but it was only built, like the Bible said, with 8 people only, and there's no metal beam structures. It's all done with wood and nails and tar to keep it together.
Right.
And so it has a very raw feel. And when I went there, I immediately felt like, wow, this is what it feels like to be in the ark in those days. And I'm like, can I shoot here?
But you think and there's no animals, right? I mean, they don't have like tigers walking around. I mean, you think about that.
I wish.
They didn't have like individual cages, I'm sure.
No.
There were like, so all of these animals, you think about all those animals, that were on there with them. I'm sorry, but 8 people versus all those animals, or or however many people got on. You know what I mean? Like you think about.
I can tell you, he had some birds in there, and I can tell you, I can already smell out of a whole 400-foot ark. I can smell the birds already. I can imagine.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Like it's filled with other animals. I mean, we've all been to the zoo. We know.
Yeah, and there wasn't exactly an escape hatch for any of the products they left behind.
Yeah.
So it was, and the great thing about the ark is one of the things when I told my kids this story, they're like, okay, whatever, it's a boat and there's some animals on it, and I'm like, yes, but it had never rained. I mean, it's something they couldn't conceive. Like the people walking by him thought he was a crazy man. Like what are you talking about? Water's gonna like come from the sky and flood? What are you talking about? I mean, the amount of faith it took to build that, along with the manpower, the little manpower they had, and the little materials that they had, it shows God's majesty and His sovereignty, and like you're just in awe of what He can do with a vessel that has vacated themselves in order for Him to fill, and that's some of the hardest things for my kids, like I'm constantly trying to find ways that I can show them I think people are now into yoga, and I got no problem with yoga. It obviously is healthy for your body, but the meditative state is what a lot of people focus on. But the meditative state is probably the most healing part about yoga, and
the Bible talks about meditation so many
exactly.
times. And I think
that's what we need to do.
Meditation has been so popular, especially with Buddhists and all that, which I consider Buddhism a way of life, not a religion. But because it's been so attached to things like Buddhism, I think a lot of Christians forget that the Bible does talk many times about meditation. Because
to meditate on the Word, to meditate on God and what He said.
Prayer is talking to Him, meditation is listening to Him. And I think a lot of people forget that. And I think, again, like the media, they always say, oh, meditation, and then they have an image of Buddha to associate with meditation. So a lot of people tend to look at that as strictly for one thing. Again, it's the media categorizing and start putting us in boxes. But we, if we step back and we read the Word and we understand that even back in those days, they do meditate, they do listen, to God's Word in, like you said, the whispers,
Have you ever thought about the fact that, when you were starting out in secular movies and horror movies, which is kind of a polar opposite of what you're doing now, and have you ever thought about like the way that God introduced you to people in general here in America, that is going to be a powerful tool? Not only did it give you the directorial skills to do what you're doing with the Bible out, but also the relationships you formed. Like they may have no one in their life that would ever introduce them to the Savior in any way that they would accept, at least. And
well, I see it as a powerful tool because the biggest thing that I ever got from my experience and my history is that a lot of times I'm very empathetic about the secular world and the non-believers and all that. So I don't ever feel like I'm judging them. In fact, I always feel like if I can help them, let me try.
Yeah.
But I think that if my experience is also a testimony for people, then so be it. I'm open to whatever, as a servant, whatever God wants me to do. Some may feel like my past is so dark and so this. I consider it a blessing, and I always will. And I will use it in every way I can to help, to use as a tool for empathizing, to further push and spread the message out to the world. And that's a really, really important thing for me right now, in my life. There is nothing probably more important than that. And to do it, empathetically, in a non-intrusive way, and to help ease people into that process that I believe that will create the most comfortable and most open way for it. Because one thing that's for certain, you can convince a person to believe in Jesus, for example, okay? You cannot, there's no words you can say that can convince them that.
Right.
But you can suggest it to them. You can let them discover. Because the beauty of it is God created all of us different. And like the Bible said so many times, He loves us all for who we are. But He also allowed us to be different in each of our own ways. So what may work for you may not work for another person.
Right.
But if I can make a suggestion, if I can guide you, and then let you discover and let your heart connect. Not our hearts connect to God, your heart connect to God, because that's the only way that your acceptance of Jesus as your Lord Savior is going to be sincere.
Yeah.
You're not doing it just because, some cute girl at church that, you're trying to go after. You're not just doing that, but you're sincere. And the only way sincerity works, just like if you ask a drug addict, what's the first step you got to do? You got to want to quit.
Yeah.
If you don't want to quit, no matter what organizations are going to help you quit, no matter what if you're a heroin addict and they give you methadone, it's not going to make you quit unless you want to. So first of all, you got to decide by yourself. So with that empathy and with that knowledge, I always try to make sure that nothing I do in Bible VR says, you believe in us or you're going to hell. Yeah. Never ever will I say that. In fact, I say, look at how cool and awesome this is. I'll let you decide for yourself.
And you know, the most effective way Jesus reached people as a human here on earth was through storytelling, like you're doing. You know, he was a storyteller. If it was a farmer, he talked to them in parables so that they could understand sowing and reaping.
Oh, absolutely.
So you are literally being a Christ-like, which is what Christian means. You know, little Christ. You know, you are practicing his method, which was storytelling, and he did it in a way that didn't make them feel like they got hit by the Bible. You know, it made them feel like, okay, so you're a tax collector. Then he can speak the parable. He can talk about the parable of the coins, you know, or the money. And I mean, there is a way, and he spoke in different stories that he knew those particular people that they would understand it in their own way, because you're right. I mean, everyone has their own path, and it's not. All three of my kids followed a different way to Christ. And you know what? My daughter, she's 21 next month. The way she came to know Christ, she had already. You know how as a kid, well, my kids grew up in church, so
and they all found Christ in different ages too, right?
Yeah, and you know, they always want to go down front. They always want, you know, because their friends did or somebody they knew did, and so we kept stopping them because they just wanted to go down. But my daughter slept with a nightlight, and she was very, very sensitive, and she slept with a nightlight, just would not sleep without it. And one night she got up and said, "I'm not going to bed tonight," and I said, "Why not?" And she said, "Because I'm afraid if I die when I go to sleep, I won't go to heaven because I haven't been saved." And she was about 7 or 8 years old. And I said, "Okay." I said, you want to talk about it? Like, seriously? So we sat down for about 2.5 hours and went through it. I was trying to make sure she really understood what she was talking about. And she said, "If I don't know him, I will go to hell, Mom." And she said, "I need to make sure that I'm doing it." And so we walked through the process. We prayed together. We prayed together. But I will tell you, the freakiest thing about it was that we went back to her room, and I turned her nightlight on and started to walk out. And she said, "Mom, you can turn the nightlight off." I said, 7 or 8 years with a nightlight, and why? Like, you're gonna want it back on in 5 minutes, so why don't I just leave it on, you know? And she said, "No, I don't need it now." And I said, "Well, I mean, it's great because you prayed." I said, "But if you need it, it's here." And she said, "But don't you see, Mom?" And she's looking all around her room, like virtual reality 360. She's looking all around her room. She said, "See, Jesus is making all the monsters leave me." And
she's 8 at the time?
7 or 8. I think she was 7 going on 8. And
that's astounding.
And I'm telling you, I went to my room after that and got on my knees, and I was like crying. I was like, because she was pointing around her room, and she that was the reason she needed a nightlight. She felt, or she saw, I mean, I can't not believe her, you know. I mean, she had no reason to lie to me in the middle of the night. And she's like, see, they're leaving. See, they're leaving me, Mom, because of Jesus. He's making them all leave. And
kids are so much more intuitive than
oh yeah, and they're so much more moldable than we are. But she like 100% never slept with a nightlight again. And to this day, she actually doesn't want any light. Even if her computer light comes on, it's like she puts a t-shirt over it or something. Like she's totally fine with it. She doesn't even like light now. But it's that. I mean, that really was just one of those moments where, yeah, and it's like, So when we would just watch movies, sometimes it would be like a teen scary movie that wasn't really scary, but it had like a thriller theme to it or something. I mean, she would be kind of like my mom. She'd be like, not okay with that one. That's kind of demonic. But this one where it's like a alien or zombie thing, like that doesn't bother her.
Right.
And it's
Let me ask you a question. There's actually a really, really small group of people, and I was actually taking part in a documentary once about horror filmmakers who are Christians. Mm-hmm. And they interviewed me. They interviewed a few actors and actresses and all that as well.
Yeah.
What is your opinion about people who would do demonic movies? Let's say a Christian actor who would, play the devil or a demon and things like that, because I hear a lot of arguments that it's just acting, it's just fun, it's got nothing to do with my faith. But I personally feel that your heart, your door, you cannot create any art whatsoever without putting your heart and soul into it. Art is art,
Yeah.
If you want to do something, you have to open up your heart to it. And so while I never mentioned much of this to my peers, but I personally feel, and maybe that was what we talked about earlier in the beginning as well, that maybe that's what caused me when I was a filmmaker to really, really feel like I'm always in the darkness kind of thing. And being saved was the most amazing thing ever for me. But do you believe that? Do you believe that the people that created are also inviting those things as much as the people who watch these things invite those things?
I do, because I think you're inviting that dark spiritual atmosphere and that realm into your life. I know that that once you accept Christ and He's in your heart, they cannot possess you. But I've heard stories, testimonies of pastors who have had demonic worshipers, do things to, like bring demonic things, and they've been beat up physically, thrown around a room and stuff. And I don't know I wasn't there. I wasn't in their head or heart. So right. I can't say whether it was true or not. But, for me, I'll tell you that I told my son, he was kind of complaining about work, and I said, you understand though, there's people that are Syrian refugees that are terrified right now. I mean, and to me, for you to complain about your job, you're inviting this negative attitude into your space. You're connecting. I think
those
even
manifest in the form of spirits.
I think Joseph Prince talked about it one time when you were. I know it was a speaker I saw on TV where they were talking about you're literally attaching yourself spiritually to everything that you invest your emotion in, and you're attaching yourself to it, and it will attach back, and I do feel like you are going to cause yourself so much struggle. I'm not saying it would like cost them their salvation or anything, but it would make life very difficult. I think they would constantly be fighting those dark forces, and
I actually experienced something like that very similarly, and even though my techniques were in the right place, but my heart wasn't. I think the important thing is the heart. Like, for example, like, if you're praying to, to God, or Jesus about, let's say you're having a really tough life, and you're not making the bills, you need more money, and you're praying and you're like, pleading for money and all that. I think, in some ways your heart is also open up to the negative spirits of lack,
Yes.
That you're so focused on the lack, you're so focused on the, the poverty that you, like you told your son, they forget to look at what God has already blessed them. And if they can appreciate it, if they can look at God and say, I'm so grateful for what you've given to me, I know, and I've seen that the minute I start changing my prayers from I need more this, I need more that, to thank you so much for this, bless me for this. I felt like every time I said that to him, I'm like blessed more and more of it.
Yeah.
So even though you may earn $1,000 and that's not enough, and you can't make your bills and your payment, to just say thanks to God for even having that, I think He will bless you with more. He's like, then I shall reward you. I shall bless you because, you have seen my work, and now I shall show you more of my work. And it's never ending. It will just keep coming and coming and coming. And this has worked really, really well for me when I stopped focusing on, like when I was in doing horror, I was like, why are you giving me more horror? I need more jobs, but I don't want more horror films. But I'm so focused on that horror films part that just kept coming. But the minute I say, thank you so much for giving me this talent, guide me that I can use this talent one day, show me how I can use this talent to spread your word. And he did. Like, just boom, like, wow, within a week or two, it was just amazing. And that was when I started saying, you know what, we consider, God, Jesus, as Father Christ and all that. So I wouldn't go to my dad saying, why aren't you giving me this? I would go to my dad, thank you so much, Dad. Like my real dad.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this present. Thank you so much for this. And guess what? He's probably going to buy me more presents. And that happened when I was young. So why can't it work? It's the same thing too. I think gratitude, surrounding yourself with that love and that energy, invites him more into your life.
Yeah, I told my son yesterday, he was just like kind of like in that, like, every college kid is broke, and he's just kind of like getting in that headspace of worrying about bills. And I said, well, I told you about that hymn. He didn't know what the hymn was, but count your blessings, name them one by one. I said, so do it. Make a list of your blessings and then make a list of your problems. And right. I said, and even if you have less blessings than you do problems, the magnitude of the blessings will still outweigh it. And I said, but if if that helps you, like, picturize it in your head, you have to connect yourself to that. And I have one daughter who is very outgoing in every single way. And then I have your study, tech nerd. And then I've got my son who's just, he's a people person kind of thing. They're all totally different. But one of them, my youngest, she has a very, a problem with gratitude, we'll just say. And, my son is constantly trying to help me. I had cancer last year, and he was just constantly there, went to the hospital, stayed with me in the hospital, spent the night there. I mean, and so then I have my youngest one that's like, I need a new TV for my dorm room. And it comes out just like that. And then once I get it for her, then it's like, thanks. I mean, but if it was my son, he'd be like, oh, I was watching TV last night, and man, it was so great on the new TV. I mean, that, and my other daughter can be like that too. Like, she'll, repeat back, how much she appreciates something I gave her like a long time ago. And so I'm like that. I don't want to do anything unequally, but in my mind, I want to give back more to those that are like that. And so I've tried to teach my kids. I said, God sees us. He calls us his children for a reason, because he sees us like we see our kids. And we have to realize that the gratitude or lack thereof, or even just saying, I'm worrying about bills, and God's not broke. God is not bankrupt. And so the provision is available. And once I have to ask you, I understand from, several actor friends of mine, and even one who just directed a new film, like, I understand the cost, like, it is so expensive to make them. But when you came out of that, did you have to kind of walk out financially on faith? Like, you're leaving kind of a thriving thing, and then you're going into an unknown a little bit?
Absolutely. I think that was when that little voice in me was telling me, let's see how much faith you've got. Put it
to work.
I'm not talking about the fact that I'm leaving the horror film industry when, there's no more jobs left, As you can see, the last movie I made was number one. And it's like I'm leaving it at the height of my career.
Yeah.
And so the real test to my faith was, do you believe that I can provide to you and leave everything, all your successes? Do you believe that I can? And the minute I said yes, that was when I started my journey. Because I can turn around right now and say, yeah, intellectually, my ego will be telling me that's a really, really stupid idea.
Yeah.
Do it when there's no work. Do it when there's, you have nothing left.
Do it when you're forced to leave. Yeah.
But I think the real power in this, the real inspiration and the real drive within me was that I did it at the height of my previous career. And so I knew that he would take care of me, and I knew I had to work hard. I knew I was going to start all over again.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm doing right now. And I have no regrets, absolutely none whatsoever.
Wasn't it Matthew that was a tax collector? He that was like it was kind of a shunned occupation, but
Still is.
but they make a lot of money. And he was in the middle of his work when Jesus came to him, and he said, "Follow me." I mean, and Matthew, it doesn't show, he may have said something, but the Bible doesn't say he responded anything. He just got up and followed him. He walked away that minute from that. And that's what this story reminds me of, is that minute that calling happened, he left what was a lucrative career as a tax collector. He left one of the highest paying, I'm sure at the time, jobs that they had, and said, okay, I'm done. I'm like, literally this minute, like, how many people could do that if you were like, working in a company?
Money as well.
Yeah.
It wasn't just the money. It was also your ego, your friends telling you, Pearry, have you seen your life lately? You're sitting and working on this all day, all night. And I have, and I never had more fun in my life, FYI.
That's awesome.
But to them, they're like, you had it all. You had every invitation to every red carpet. If you needed any, women and all that, you could have it all, and you just gave it all away. Like, and now you're stuck in your room. Like, you need to come out. You need to, get back in the game. And I'm like, I don't. I'm actually really happy doing what I'm doing. I feel like I'm doing. No, I feel like I know I'm doing something that is, is going to affect people's lives. I mean, it's like, again, like I said, seeing the, people in tears, seeing people finally be able to experience the word, and overwhelming emotions was it's way better than anything Hollywood could provide.
If you lose your life for him, you will gain, and that's biblical. To lose is to gain with him. If you give up anything, it could be smoking. If you give up anything because you no longer feel that is right for you, whether it was a sin or it was just something that was hindering your spiritual life, it doesn't even have to be a sin. It could be just something that is hindering you and keeping you, because sometimes God has a door waiting for the knob to be turned, but we are still trying to crack the window open or something. I mean,
I think people associate too much. I think people, when because whenever you see a red carpet picture and all that, you see somebody smiling.
It's all glam. You didn't work for it. Yeah.
but that's the thing. You're expected to smile, and then when you see a picture of somebody at the desk, staring at their work, and they're not smiling because they're focused, they've got their sights lasered into one thing. You're like, that's work, that's boring. But we can work without smiling, but inside we feel a lot of joy.
This has been, I'm not joking. I mean, I've jokingly said it before, but this is literally one of my favorite interviews I've ever done. It really is. I have.
You know why? Because we're both sharing.
Yeah,
I think that's important.
I can see your heart, and you're a techie, whether you like it or not, you are, because you have now you've immersed yourself in the tech world. All right, thank you. I'm so honored to meet you. All right, have a blessed day, Pearry.
You too.